Somewhere in the universe right now, a star is dying. Not quickly, not violently, but slowly, gently, the way a candle burns down to nothing. And here is something strange to consider. That star may have already died. It may have collapsed into itself thousands of years ago. But because the light from that star takes so long to reach us, we are still seeing it shine. We are watching something that no longer exists. This happens all the time. Every time you look up at the night sky, you are looking into the past. The light from the nearest star beyond our sun left that star over 4 years ago. The light from some of the stars you can see with your naked eye left those stars before you were born, before your parents were born, before entire civilizations rose and fell. You are never seeing the sky as it is. You are seeing the sky as it was. And this is where things start to get interesting. Because if you can never see the present moment of a distant star, if you are always looking at the past when you look outward, then what does the present even mean? What does now mean when now depends on where you are standing and how fast you are moving? These are not abstract questions. These are questions that physics has been wrestling with for over a century. And the answers that physics has found are stranger than almost anyone expected. Tonight we are going to think about time, not the time on your clock or the time on your phone, not the time you spend waiting for something or the time that seems to disappear when you are doing something you love. We are going to think about what time actually is, what it means for something to happen now, whether the past is really gone, whether the future already exists somewhere waiting for you to arrive. These ideas might sound impossible. They might sound like science fiction or philosophy or just wordplay, but they are based on real physics. Physics that has been tested and confirmed for over 100 years. Physics that runs your GPS, that powers particle accelerators, that predicted phenomena we have since observed exactly as the equations said we would. The physics is solid. What remains uncertain is what the physics means, and that is what makes this so fascinating. You do not need to remember any of this. You do not need to take notes or stay focused or quiz yourself later. If you fall asleep in the middle, that is perfectly fine. These ideas will be here. The universe will keep its secrets whether you are awake or asleep. There is nothing required of you right now except to rest and to wonder and to let your mind drift wherever it wants to go. So let us begin with something simple, something you probably learned when you were young but may not have thought about in a long time. Light has a speed. This seems obvious. Of course, light has a speed. Everything that moves has a speed, but think about what this really means. When you turn on a lamp, the light does not instantly fill the room. It travels from the bulb to the walls to your eyes at a specific speed. The speed is so fast that you cannot perceive the delay, but the delay is there. Light travels at about 186,000 miles per second. That is roughly 670 million miles per hour. In the time it takes you to blink, light could travel around the Earth several times. At everyday distances, this speed is so fast that it might as well be instant. When you look across a room, the light reaching your eyes left the objects across the room about 1/1000th of a second ago. You cannot notice this. Your brain cannot process delays that small. For all practical purposes, you are seeing the present. But stretch the distance, and the delay becomes real. The moon is about 239,000 miles away. Light from the moon takes about 1.3 seconds to reach you. When you look at the moon, you are seeing it as it was 1.3 seconds ago. The sun is about 93 million miles away. Light from the sun takes about 8 minutes to reach you. When you feel sunlight on your skin, that light left the sun 8 minutes before it touched you. If the sun suddenly vanished, you would not know for 8 minutes. You would keep feeling its warmth, keep seeing its light, for 8 more minutes before the darkness reached you. And beyond our solar system, the distances become almost unimaginable. The nearest star to our sun is called Proxima Centauri. It is about 4.24 light-years away. A light-year is the distance light travels in 1 year, about 5.88 trillion miles. When you see the light from Proxima Centauri, that light began its journey over 4 years ago. You are seeing that star as it was when you were 4 years younger. Some of the stars visible to the naked eye are hundreds of light-years away. The light reaching your eyes tonight left those stars before the American Revolution, before the Renaissance, before the Roman Empire fell. And there are objects we can see with telescopes that are billions of light years away. The light from those objects has been traveling toward us for billions of years. We are seeing them as they were when the Earth did not yet exist, when our sun had not yet formed, when the atoms that would become your body were scattered across space in clouds of dust and gas. Every time you look at the night sky, you are looking at a mosaic of different pasts. Each point of light is arriving from a different time. The sky you see is not a single moment, but countless moments layered on top of each other, all reaching your eyes at once. This is not a limitation of our technology. This is not something we could fix with better telescopes or faster instruments. This is the nature of reality. Light takes time to travel, and so information takes time to travel, and so you can never see the distant universe as it is right now. You can only see it as it was. And here is where things start to get strange. In the early 1900s, a young physicist named Albert Einstein was thinking about light. He was thinking about a puzzle that had been bothering physicists for decades. The puzzle had to do with how light behaves when you are moving. Imagine you are standing still and someone shines a flashlight at you. The light travels toward you at 186,000 miles per second. That makes sense. Now imagine you are running toward the flashlight as fast as you can. Common sense says the light should now be traveling toward you faster. Your speed plus the light's speed. Just like if you are driving toward another car, the car seems to approach you faster than if you were standing still. But that is not what happens with light. No matter how fast you move toward the light, it still approaches you at exactly 186,000 miles per second. Not faster, not slower, the same. And if you run away from the light, it still travels toward you at 186,000 miles per second, the same speed it would have if you were standing still. This seems wrong. This seems like it should violate basic math. If you are moving towards something, it should approach you faster. That is just how speeds add up. But light does not work that way. Light travels at the same speed for everyone, no matter how they are moving. This has been tested countless times in countless experiments. It is one of the most precisely confirmed facts in all of physics. Einstein took this strange fact seriously. He asked himself, if the speed of light is the same for everyone, what else must be true? What does this tell us about space and time? The answer he found was revolutionary. If the speed of light is the same for everyone, then something else must be different for different observers, and that something else is time. Two people moving at different speeds will experience time differently. A clock on a fast-moving spaceship will tick slower than a clock sitting still on Earth, not because the clock is broken, not because something is wrong with the clock, but because time itself passes more slowly for the moving clock. This is called time dilation, and it is real. We have tested it with atomic clocks on airplanes. We have tested it with particles in accelerators moving close to the speed of light. We have tested it with satellites orbiting the Earth. Every test confirms exactly what Einstein predicted. Moving clocks really do tick slower. The effect is tiny at everyday speeds. If you fly in an airplane for your entire life, you would age about a millionth of a second less than someone who stayed on the ground. You would never notice, but the effect is there. At speeds closer to the speed of light, the effect becomes dramatic. If you could travel at 90% the speed of light, time would pass for you at less than half the rate it passes for someone standing still. You could travel for what feels like a year to you and return to Earth to find that over 2 years have passed for everyone else. This is not speculation, this is not theory, this is observed fact. And time dilation was just the beginning of what Einstein discovered. There is another effect, equally strange, that goes hand in hand with time dilation. It has to do with the question we started with, the question of what now means. Imagine two events happening at the same time. A firecracker goes off in New York and a firecracker goes off in Los Angeles at exactly the same moment. For someone standing midway between them, the two events are simultaneous. They happen at the same time. But here is what Einstein showed. For someone moving past at high speed, those two events are not simultaneous. One of them happens before the other. This is not an optical illusion. This is not about when the observer sees the events. This is about when the events actually happen according to that observer's reference frame. Two people in relative motion will disagree about whether two distant events happened at the same time. And here is the crucial part: neither of them is wrong. There is no fact of the matter about which one is correct. Simultaneity, the question of what is happening now at a distant location, is not absolute. It depends on how you are moving. This sounds impossible. This sounds like a mistake, like there must be some way to determine who is really right about what happened when, but there is not. The physics is clear. Simultaneity is relative. And this is where the strangeness deepens. Think about what this means for the present moment. You probably feel like there is an objective now, a universal present moment that is the same everywhere. Right now, things are happening all over the universe, and they are all happening at the same moment, this moment, the moment you call now. But if simultaneity is relative, then this cannot be true. What you call now depends on how you are moving. Someone moving differently than you would draw the line between past and future in a different place. There is a famous thought experiment that illustrates this. It involves two people walking past each other on a sidewalk and a galaxy 2.5 million light-years away. The Andromeda galaxy is the nearest large galaxy to our own Milky Way. It contains roughly 1 trillion stars. It is so far away that the light from it takes 2.5 million years to reach us. Now imagine two people on Earth. One is walking east, one is walking west. They pass each other on the street, moving at ordinary walking speed, maybe 2 or 3 miles per hour. According to the mathematics of special relativity, these two people will disagree about what is happening right now in Andromeda, not by a tiny amount, not by a fraction of a second, by several days. The person walking toward Andromeda, because of the direction of their motion, will have a present moment that includes events in Andromeda that are several days later than the events included in the present moment of the person walking away from Andromeda. If some event is happening in Andromeda, maybe a council making a decision, maybe a star exploding, maybe just an ordinary Tuesday afternoon on some distant planet, one of these two walkers would say that event is in their future. It has not happened yet. And the other walker would say that event is in their past. It has already happened. Neither of them is wrong. The physics says there is no objective answer to the question of when that event is happening relative to their walk on the sidewalk. This is sometimes called the Andromeda Paradox, and it reveals something disturbing about the nature of time. If what counts as now depends on how you are moving, then the present moment is not carved into the fabric of reality. It is not an objective feature of the universe. It is something each observer constructs based on their own motion. And if the present is not objective, then what about the past and future? You probably think of the past as gone, done, no longer existing. The future, meanwhile, is not yet real. It has not happened yet. It is open, undetermined, waiting to be created. But think about what the Andromeda Paradox implies. An event in Andromeda that you consider to be in your future is already in the past for someone else walking next to you. That event, according to them, has already happened. It is settled, done. If the event has already happened according to one legitimate observer, can we really say it does not exist? Can we say it is not real? That observer would insist it is real, that it is a fact of the universe, that it is part of what has already occurred. This line of reasoning leads to a startling conclusion, a conclusion that many physicists and philosophers take very seriously. Maybe the future already exists. Maybe your tomorrow is already out there, somewhere in the structure of reality. Maybe the events of next week, next year, next century are already real, already part of the universe, just located at a different position in the fabric of space and time. This idea has a name. It is called the block universe, or sometimes eternalism. In this picture, the universe is not a three-dimensional space that changes over time. The universe is a four-dimensional structure that simply exists. All of time, past, present, and future, is part of this structure. Your birth is there. Your death is there. Every moment of your life is located somewhere in this four-dimensional block. The block does not change. It does not evolve. It just is. What you experience as the flow of time in this picture is something like moving through the block. Or rather, it is something like being conscious at different points along your path through the block. At each point, you have the experience of now. You have memories of the past and expectations of the future, but the block itself is not flowing. The block is static. This is a strange and unsettling idea. It goes against everything our experience tells us about time. We feel time flowing. We feel the present moment as something special, something real, something that is happening right now. The past feels gone. The future feels open. But our experience might not be a reliable guide to the nature of reality. Our experience of the solid ground beneath us tells us the floor is solid, but physics tells us it is mostly empty space, atoms held together by forces, with vast distances between particles at the subatomic level. The solidity is real as an experience, but it is not what is fundamentally there. The flow of time might work the same way, real as an experience, not what is fundamentally there. A few years after Einstein published his theory of special relativity, a mathematician named Hermann Minkowski reformulated it in a new way. Minkowski showed that space and time are not really separate things. They are two aspects of a single unified structure, which he called spacetime. In Minkowski's picture, the universe is four-dimensional, 3 dimensions of space, which you can think of as length, width, and height, and 1 dimension of time. Every event that happens is a point in this four-dimensional spacetime. The event has a where, its location in space, and it has a when, its location in time. Together, the where and the when specify a point in spacetime. Your entire life, in this picture, is a line through spacetime. Physicists call this a world line. The world line begins at the point in spacetime where you were born. It ends at the point in spacetime where you die. Every moment in between is located somewhere along this line. The world line does not move. It does not grow or extend as time passes. It is just there in the four-dimensional structure, like a thread woven into a fabric. When Minkowski introduced this way of thinking about spacetime, he made a striking statement. He said that space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows. Only the union of the two, spacetime, will preserve an independent reality. Space and time, as separate concepts, are shadows. The real thing is the unified structure. Einstein himself seemed to embrace this view. In 1955, shortly before his own death, Einstein wrote a letter to the family of a close friend who had recently died. In that letter, Einstein offered a remarkable statement of comfort. He wrote that for those who believe in physics, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. An illusion, that is the word Einstein used. Not a mistake exactly, not a falsehood, but something that does not reflect the objective structure of reality. Something that exists in our experience, but not in the world as it fundamentally is. Think about what it would mean for the distinction between past, present, and future to be an illusion. Right now, you are experiencing this moment. It feels utterly real, utterly present, utterly now. The moments you remember from yesterday feel like the past, gone, no longer existing. The moments you will experience tomorrow feel like the future, not yet existing, open, undetermined. Einstein's suggestion is that this feeling does not correspond to how reality is actually structured. The past is not gone. The future is not unreal. All of it is there, spread out in the four-dimensional block, equally real at every point. This is the part that I find both strangest and most fascinating. The idea that yesterday and tomorrow are both there, that they both exist in the same sense that today exists, that the difference between them is something like the difference between here and there, rather than the difference between real and unreal. I want to be careful here because I do not want to overstate what we know. The physics of special relativity is well tested. The relativity of simultaneity is real. The mathematics of spacetime works beautifully. These are not speculations or guesses. But whether the physics forces us to accept the block universe is a matter of ongoing debate. Philosophers have been arguing about this for decades. There are sophisticated objections to the block universe, and there are responses to those objections, and the debate continues. What I can tell you is that many physicists, when they think carefully about what relativity implies, find themselves drawn towards some version of the block universe view. The mathematics seems to point in that direction. The four-dimensional spacetime structure seems to be the natural interpretation of the equations. But physics equations can be interpreted in more than one way, and the question of what exists is ultimately a philosophical question, not one that experiments can directly answer. So let us sit with the uncertainty. Let us hold both possibilities in mind. The block universe might be true, and the future might already exist, or there might be some other interpretation we have not fully understood yet. Either way, the physics has revealed something profound. Time is not what we thought it was. Let me take you a little deeper into the mathematics, not because you need to understand the formulas, but because I want you to see just how precise this all is. This is not hand-waving or vague philosophy. This is exact science. The formula that describes how observers in relative motion disagree about time is called the Lorentz transformation. It was developed before Einstein by a physicist named Hendrik Lorentz, and Einstein showed that it follows naturally from the principle that the speed of light is constant for all observers. The Lorentz transformation tells you exactly how much two observers will disagree about when events happen, based on how fast they are moving relative to each other and how far apart the events are in space. The disagreement is proportional to the relative velocity and the distance, and inversely proportional to the speed of light squared. At small distances and slow speeds, the disagreement is negligible, but at cosmic distances, even slow speeds produce large disagreements. For the two walkers in the Andromeda Paradox, moving at about 1 meter per second relative to each other, across a distance of 2.5 million light-years, the formula gives a disagreement of about 3 days. 3 days from walking speed across intergalactic space. If they were walking a bit faster, say a brisk walking pace of about 1.5 meters per second, the disagreement would grow to over 4 days. This is what the equations say. This is not an approximation or an estimate. This is the precise prediction of special relativity, and special relativity has been tested to extraordinary precision for over a century. The effect at shorter distances is much smaller. Across the diameter of the Earth, about 12,700 kilometers, the same walking speed would produce a disagreement of less than a billionth of a second. You could never detect it. It would never matter for anything practical. But the principle is the same. Simultaneity is relative. What counts as now depends on your motion, and this holds at all scales, even if the effect is only noticeable at cosmic distances. Let me pause here and acknowledge something. All of this might feel very abstract, very distant from your actual life. What does it matter what is happening now in Andromeda? Why should you care whether two walkers disagree about distant events by a few days? The reason this matters is not practical. It matters because of what it tells us about the nature of time itself. If simultaneity is relative even in principle, even at cosmic distances, then the present moment is not what we thought it was. And if the present is not what we thought it was, then our whole picture of time, of past and future, of becoming and change, might need revision. These are the deepest questions you can ask about reality. What exists? What is real? What is the structure of the universe we find ourselves in? Physics, by studying light and motion and space and time, has stumbled onto answers that no one expected. And those answers challenge assumptions so basic that most people never even think to question them. You do not have to accept the block universe. You do not have to believe that the future already exists, but I think it is worth knowing that serious physicists take this possibility seriously, that the equations point in this direction, that our intuitions about time might be leading us astray. And now let me shift to something a little different. Let me talk about what this means for how we experience time, for what it is like to be a conscious being moving through life. Whatever the physics says about the structure of spacetime, your experience of time is vivid and undeniable. You feel time flowing. You feel the present moment as something special, something real, something that is happening right now. The past feels gone, accessible only through memory. The future feels open, undetermined, waiting to be shaped by your choices. Where does this experience come from? Neuroscientists have been studying how the brain processes time. They have found that our sense of time is not a simple perception, like seeing a color or hearing a sound. It is a construction, something our brains build from many different inputs. There are neurons in the brain that seem to track the passage of time. They fire in sequences, creating a kind of internal clock. These neurons help us situate events in time, distinguish past from future, estimate durations. Our sense of the present moment, what philosophers call the specious present, spans about 2 to 3 seconds. Within this window, events feel simultaneous, feel like they are happening now. Outside this window, events feel like the past or the anticipated future. This specious present is not the same as the physical instant we might call the present. The physical instant, if it exists at all, has 0 duration. The specious present has a duration of a few seconds. It is a window of awareness, not a point. What this means is that even our experience of now is a construction. It is something our brains create, not something we perceive directly about the external world. In the block universe picture, this makes a kind of sense. If all of spacetime exists together, then the experience of flow must be something that happens within conscious minds at particular locations along their world lines. Each moment of consciousness experiences itself as now. Each moment has memories of the past and expectations of the future. But the flow, the sense that time is moving, is a feature of the experience, not necessarily a feature of the external structure. This is a strange thought. The most basic feature of our conscious experience, the feeling that time passes, might not correspond to anything out in the world. It might be something our brains create, an artifact of how consciousness works, not a window onto the fundamental nature of reality. I do not want to overstate this. We do not fully understand consciousness. We do not know how subjective experience relates to the physical structure of the brain or to the structure of spacetime. These are deep mysteries, and anyone who claims to have solved them is probably overstating their case. But I think it is worth contemplating the possibility that our experience of time, vivid as it is, might not be the last word on what time is. The physics suggests that time is stranger than experience reveals. And perhaps our experience is just one perspective, just one way of being embedded in a structure that exists in ways we cannot directly perceive. There is another aspect of time that we need to consider. Even if the block universe is correct, even if past and future are equally real, there is still something special about the direction we call future. We remember the past, not the future. We can affect the future, not the past. Causes come before effects, not after. There is an arrow to time, a direction that distinguishes the future from the past. Where does this arrow come from? The fundamental laws of physics, as we currently understand them, are mostly symmetric in time. If you film a simple physical process and play the film backward, the reversed version obeys the same laws as the original. There is nothing in the basic equations that prefers one direction of time over the other. And yet we observe a strong asymmetry. Eggs break but do not unbreak. Ice melts but does not spontaneously freeze. People age but do not grow younger. The universe moves in one direction, not the other. The explanation physicists give involves a concept called entropy. Entropy is, roughly speaking, a measure of disorder or randomness. A neatly organized system has low entropy. A messy, disordered system has high entropy. The second law of thermodynamics says that in an isolated system, entropy tends to increase over time. Things tend to become more disordered, not less. This gives time a direction. The future is the direction in which entropy increases. The past is the direction in which entropy was lower. But this raises a puzzle. Why was entropy low in the past? The laws of physics do not explain this. They are symmetric in time and do not prefer low entropy at one end or the other. The standard answer is what physicists call the past hypothesis. It is simply the assumption that the early universe, near the Big Bang, was in an extraordinarily low entropy state. From that starting point, entropy has been increasing ever since, giving us our arrow of time. This might sound like cheating. We are explaining the arrow of time by just assuming a special condition in the past. But this is actually a deep insight. The arrow of time is not built into the fundamental laws. It emerges from the boundary conditions, from the way the universe happened to start. In the block universe picture, this means the arrow of time is a feature of the pattern of events within the block, not evidence that time flows or that the future is unreal. One direction within the block has lower entropy than the other. That direction is what we call the past. The other direction is what we call the future. The arrow is real, the asymmetry is real, but it is a pattern in a static structure, not a flow through a changing present. Think of a painting of a river. In the painting, the river appears to flow from mountains to the sea. There is a direction to the flow, a pattern in the image that suggests motion, but the painting itself is static. The paint is not moving. The flow is a pattern in a static image, not an actual movement. The arrow of time in the block universe might work the same way. A pattern in a static four-dimensional structure, real as a pattern, not evidence that the structure itself is changing or flowing. Let me bring this back to something closer to your own experience. You woke up this morning, maybe you had breakfast, maybe you checked your phone. Now you are here, resting, listening to these words. Each of these moments felt like now when it was happening. Each of them is a point along your world line through spacetime. According to the block universe, each of those moments is still there. The you who woke up this morning exists at those spacetime coordinates, having that experience. The you who is here now exists at these spacetime coordinates, having this experience. Neither is more real than the other. Both are part of the four-dimensional structure. The sense that this moment is special, that it is now, that it is the one real moment, that sense is happening at every point along your world line. Every moment feels like now from within. Every moment has the experience of being present. If the block universe is correct, then nothing is lost when a moment passes. The moment does not vanish into non-existence. It remains at its coordinates in spacetime, as real as it ever was. You just find yourself at different coordinates, having different experiences. I am not sure if this is comforting or disturbing. Maybe it is both, maybe it is neither, but I find it worth contemplating. The happiest days of your life are still there, somewhere in spacetime. The people you have loved who are no longer here, they still exist at the coordinates of their lives. The past is not erased, it is preserved. And the future, whatever it holds, is there too. You just have not arrived at those coordinates yet. From your current perspective, the future is unknown. You will experience it moment by moment, discovering what happens as you go. But if the block universe is correct, what happens is already part of the structure. It is already there. This raises questions about choice and freedom. If the future already exists, can you really choose what happens? Is there any room for free will? I want to be careful here, because this is a place where many people get confused. The block universe says the future exists. It does not say the future is determined by the past. These are different claims. Determinism is the idea that the state of the universe at one time uniquely determines the state at all other times. The past determines the future. Everything that happens is the inevitable consequence of what came before. The block universe is compatible with determinism, but it does not require it. You could have a block universe where events are random, where quantum mechanics introduces genuine unpredictability, but where all the events, including the random ones, are part of the four-dimensional structure. In such a universe, you could not predict the future because the future involves random events that cannot be known in advance. But the future would still exist. It would still be part of the block. The more important point is this: even if the future exists, your choices are part of what makes the future what it is. When you make a decision, that decision is an event in spacetime. It has causal consequences. It affects what happens later. The block universe does not say your choices are overridden by fate. It says your choices are part of the structure. They are woven into the fabric of what happens. Think of it this way. Suppose you are deciding whether to have coffee or tea tomorrow morning. Whatever you decide, that decision will be part of the block. If you decide coffee, the block contains you deciding coffee. If you decide tea, the block contains you deciding tea. The block does not decide for you, you decide, and your decision is what makes the block be the way it is. This is subtle, and I do not want to pretend that it resolves all the philosophical puzzles about free will. It does not. But I also do not think the block universe makes free will any more problematic than it already is. The hard questions about freedom and choice are hard whether or not you accept the block universe. Let me step back now and think about what all of this means, if it is true. If the block universe is correct, then reality is very different from what our experience suggests. The universe is not a three-dimensional stage where events happen one after another. The universe is a four-dimensional structure where all events exist together. Your life is a thread through this structure, a world line connecting your birth to your death, with every moment in between located somewhere along the thread. The passage of time in this picture is something that happens within conscious minds. Each point along your world line has the experience of being now, of remembering the past, of anticipating the future, but the world line itself is not moving through the structure. The world line just is. This is a strange picture of reality. It takes time to absorb. It might never feel fully intuitive. Our brains evolved to navigate a world of immediate survival, not to contemplate the four-dimensional structure of spacetime. Our intuitions are not calibrated for this. But strange does not mean false. The history of physics is full of discoveries that seemed strange at first. The Earth moving around the Sun seemed strange. Empty space being mostly what solid objects are made of seemed strange. Quantum mechanics, where particles can be in multiple places at once until observed, seemed strange. Reality is under no obligation to match our intuitions. And sometimes, when we follow the mathematics carefully, we discover that reality is very different from what we expected. Let me tell you about something that happened to me when I first really understood these ideas. I was reading about the Andromeda Paradox, working through the numbers, trying to grasp what the relativity of simultaneity actually means. And at some point, it clicked. I put the book down and just sat there for a while. The feeling was hard to describe. It was not quite awe, not quite fear, not quite excitement. It was something like vertigo, but intellectual rather than physical. A sense that the ground had shifted, that something I had always taken for granted was not what I thought. I do not know if everyone has this experience when they encounter these ideas. Maybe for some people it is just interesting, just another fact to file away. But for me, it changed something about how I relate to time. I still experience time flowing. I still feel the present as special. I still make plans for the future and remember the past. Nothing about my daily life has changed in any practical way. But there is something in the background now, a sense that the universe is larger and stranger than ordinary experience reveals. A sense that the moment I am in is not the only real moment, but one point in a vast structure that extends in all directions. I do not know if this is wisdom or just a different way of being confused, but it feels like something worth sitting with. And now let me slow down a little. We have covered a lot of ground, and there is no hurry. The ideas will be here. The universe will keep its mysteries. You do not need to hold on to any of this. If you are still awake, that is fine. If you are drifting towards sleep, that is fine too. Either way, let your mind relax. Let the words wash over you without grasping. Think about the stars again. Each point of light in the night sky is arriving from a different time. Some of that light is thousands of years old. Some of it is millions of years old. When you look at the sky, you are looking at countless different pasts, all reaching your eyes at once. And somewhere out there, there are events happening right now, according to some definition of now, that you will not know about for years or centuries or millennia. Light from those events is traveling toward you, crossing the vast distances of space, carrying information about what is happening in distant parts of the universe. You are connected to all of it in a way. You are part of the same space-time structure, the same four-dimensional fabric that contains those distant galaxies contains you here now in this moment. Everything that has ever happened and everything that ever will happen is part of this structure, and you are woven into it, a thread among countless other threads, stretching from your beginning to your end. This is the block universe, all of it there, all of it real. And here you are, at this particular point, having this particular experience, wondering about the nature of time. Let me take you back to something we touched on earlier, because I think it deserves more attention: the question of what happens when we die. This is perhaps the oldest question humans have asked. Every culture has stories about what lies beyond, about afterlives and rebirths and final endings. We fear death, most of us, or at least we find it mysterious, troubling, hard to accept. The block universe offers its own perspective on death, not a religious perspective, not a spiritual perspective, but a physical one, a perspective based on what the structure of spacetime might actually be. In the block universe, death is the end of a world line. There is a last moment, a last point along your path through spacetime. After that point, your world line does not continue. There are no more moments of your consciousness, no more experiences, no more you. But the world line does not vanish. The moments that came before the end are still there, at their coordinates in spacetime. The you who lived those moments still exists, in a sense, at those locations in the four-dimensional structure. This is not survival in any ordinary sense. You cannot return to those moments. You cannot relive them. The past is there, but you are not experiencing it anymore. The world line is frozen in the block, like a thread woven into a fabric. And yet there is something here that some people find meaningful. The moments of your life are not lost. They do not disappear when they pass. They remain, preserved in the structure of spacetime, as real as they ever were. Every laugh, every conversation, every quiet moment of peace, every act of kindness, every connection with another person, every experience of beauty or love or wonder, all of it is there, woven into the fabric, part of the permanent structure of reality. When someone you love dies, their world line ends. You cannot see them again, cannot talk to them, cannot hold them. This is loss, real and painful. The block universe does not make grief disappear. But if the block universe is correct, then they are still there, at the coordinates of their life, living those moments, having those experiences, not gone in any absolute sense, just at a different location in the four-dimensional structure. Einstein seemed to find some comfort in this view. When he wrote to the family of his friend who had died, he was offering this perspective. The distinction between past, present, and future is an illusion. What we call the past is not gone. It is part of the structure. I do not know if this is comforting to you. It might feel too abstract, too removed from the raw reality of loss. Or it might offer something, a different way of thinking about impermanence, about what it means for things to pass. I offer it not as a claim about what you should feel, but as one of the implications of this picture of time. If the block universe is correct, then nothing is lost. Everything that ever happened is still there, preserved forever in the fabric of spacetime. Let me turn now to another implication, the question of meaning. If the future already exists, if everything that will happen is already part of the structure, does anything matter? What is the point of striving, of making choices, of trying to shape the future, if the future is already there? This is a natural worry, but I think it rests on a confusion. The future being there does not mean the future is independent of what you do. Your choices are part of what makes the future what it is. The block contains your choices, and your choices have consequences. If you choose differently, the block would be different. Think about a story in a book. The whole story exists from beginning to end on the pages of the book. But within the story, the characters make choices. Those choices matter to the story. They determine what happens. The fact that the story is already written does not make the choices within the story meaningless. In the block universe, you are like a character in the story of spacetime. Your choices are written into the structure. They matter. They shape what happens. The fact that the story exists all at once does not make your choices irrelevant. There is another way to think about meaning in the block universe. If all of time exists together, then your life is not a temporary flicker that appears and disappears. Your life is a permanent part of the structure of reality. It is woven into the fabric. It exists. For some people, there is something meaningful in this. The moments of your life are not erased by the passage of time. They endure. They matter, not just while they are happening, but forever as part of the eternal structure. I do not want to push this too far. Meaning is personal and subjective, and I cannot tell you what should feel meaningful to you. But I think the block universe does not erase meaning. It offers a different context for meaning, a different way of thinking about the significance of what happens. Let me rest here for a moment. These are deep waters, and there is no rush. Think about where you are right now, the room around you, the sounds you hear, the feeling of your body settling into rest. This moment, this experience, is a point in spacetime. It exists. It is real. According to the block universe, it will always exist. This moment will never cease to be part of the structure. 1,000,000 years from now, 1,000,000,000 years from now, this moment will still be there, at its coordinates, woven into the fabric. There is something strangely peaceful about that thought, not that you will be aware of it, not that you will experience it again, but that it is there, preserved, part of the permanent structure of reality. You do not have to accept this. You do not have to believe it. These ideas are strange, and reasonable people disagree about them, but I find them worth contemplating, worth sitting with, worth turning over in the mind as a way of relating differently to time. Let me talk about something else now, the nature of change. In our everyday experience, things change. The sun rises and sets, people grow older, seasons turn. Change seems fundamental to reality, maybe the most fundamental thing. What is change in the block universe? In the block universe, change is a pattern within the structure. At one set of coordinates, the sun is in one position. At later coordinates, the sun is in a different position. The difference between these positions is what we call change. But the structure itself does not change. The block is static. Change is a pattern within the block, not a property of the block itself. This might seem to contradict our experience. We experience change as happening. We experience the world as dynamic, in motion, evolving from moment to moment. But remember, our experience is from within the block. We are conscious beings at particular locations in spacetime. At each location, we have certain experiences, including experiences of things changing, of time passing, of the present moment giving way to the next. The experience of change is real, but the experience is a pattern in a static structure, not evidence that the structure is changing. Think again about the painting of the river. The river in the painting seems to flow. There is a direction, a sense of motion, captured in the brush strokes, but the painting is static. The paint is not moving. The flow is a pattern, not an actual change. The flow of time in the block universe might work the same way. A pattern in a static structure, real as an experience, real as a pattern, not a change in the structure itself. This is one of the hardest things to wrap your mind around. We are so used to thinking of change as fundamental, as the most basic feature of reality, that a static picture feels wrong. But remember, many things that seemed obvious have turned out to be wrong. The Earth seems stationary, but it is hurtling through space. Solid objects seem solid, but they are mostly empty space. Our intuitions are not always reliable guides to reality. Maybe the flow of time is another example, something that seems obvious from inside our experience, but that does not correspond to the fundamental structure of reality. Let me slow down again. We have been thinking hard, and hard thinking can be tiring. Let your mind rest. Let these ideas settle or drift away, whichever happens naturally. There is a quality of stillness in the block universe that I find restful to contemplate. Everything is already there. There is nothing to wait for, nothing to anticipate, nothing to worry about. The structure just is. Of course, you do not experience it that way. You experience anticipation, worry, hope, fear. You experience the future as unknown, uncertain, something to be faced. But there is a perspective from which all of that is already settled, a perspective from which your whole life is laid out, complete, woven into the fabric. From that perspective, there is nothing more to add, nothing more to change. Everything simply is. I'm not saying you should try to adopt that perspective. I am not sure it is possible to fully adopt it while you are alive and embedded in time, but maybe glimpsing it, even briefly, offers something, a moment of peace, a different way of relating to the urgency and flux of ordinary experience. Let me tell you about one more aspect of this picture, the question of why we remember the past and not the future. This might seem like a strange question. Of course, we remember the past. Memory is about the past. That is what memory is. But think about it in block universe terms. If past and future are both there, if they are equally real parts of the structure, why should our brains have access to one direction and not the other? The answer connects to entropy and the arrow of time. Memories are physical records. They are patterns in your brain, arrangements of neurons that carry information about past events. These patterns are formed by the causal influence of past events on your brain. Light bounces off something, enters your eyes, triggers neural activity, and a memory is formed. For such records to form, you need a direction of increasing entropy. Records are low-entropy patterns, ordered arrangements that carry information. And in a universe where entropy increases in one direction, records naturally form pointing toward the low-entropy direction, the past. If entropy decreased toward the future instead of increasing, we would form records of the future instead of the past. We would remember tomorrow and have to wait to find out what happened yesterday. This sounds bizarre, but there is nothing in the fundamental laws that forbids it. It is just that in our universe, the boundary conditions happen to establish low entropy in one direction. That direction is what we call the past, and so our memories point that way. This tells us something important. Memory is not a window onto what exists versus what does not exist. Memory is a physical process that creates correlations in one temporal direction rather than the other. And that direction is set by thermodynamics, by the arrow of time, not by some fundamental asymmetry between the reality of past and future. In the block universe, both past and future exist, but our brains, as physical systems, form records primarily in one direction. That is why we remember the past and not the future, not because the past is real and the future is not, but because of how entropy works, how physical records form, how information flows through a universe with the boundary conditions ours has. This is subtle, and I do not expect it to be immediately intuitive, but I find it illuminating. It shows how our sense of time, our feeling that the past is done and the future is open, might emerge from thermodynamics rather than from some fundamental truth about what exists. Let me rest here again. These ideas are a lot to hold. Think about your breath, the air coming in, the air going out. Each breath is a small cycle, a tiny pattern of change within your body. In the block universe, every breath you have ever taken, every breath you ever will take, is there in the structure. A sequence of moments along your world line, each one located at its coordinates, each one real. There is something meditative about this image. The whole sequence of your life, spread out in spacetime, complete. You are moving through it, experiencing it moment by moment, but from another perspective, it is all already there, finished, whole. Let me talk now about something that often comes up when people think about these ideas. The sense of fatalism, of things being out of your control, of life being predetermined. I understand this feeling. If the future already exists, it can seem like nothing you do matters, like you are just going through the motions of a script that has already been written. But I think this feeling comes from confusing two different things: the existence of the future and the determination of the future. The block universe says the future exists. It is part of the structure, but the block universe does not say how the future gets to be what it is. It does not say the future is determined by the past in some inevitable way. Your choices are part of what makes the future what it is. When you choose, that choice is an event in spacetime. It has effects. It shapes what comes later. The future exists, yes, but it exists the way it does partly because of what you do. Think of it as a kind of co-creation. The structure of spacetime is not imposed on you from outside. You are part of the structure. Your choices are woven into it. They matter. The feeling of fatalism might come from imagining the block universe as something that exists independently of you, like a book that was written before you were born. But that is not the right picture. You are not reading the book. You are part of the book. Your actions are part of what the book says. This might not fully resolve the feeling. Questions about free will and determinism are genuinely hard, and I do not claim to have all the answers. But I want to push back against the idea that the block universe automatically makes your choices meaningless. I do not think that follows. Let me shift now to something more personal. When I think about my own life in light of these ideas, I notice a subtle change in how I relate to time. The ordinary experience of time is urgent. The present moment is fleeting, always slipping away into the past. There is never enough time. The future is uncertain, something to worry about or hope for. The past is gone, accessible only through fading memories. The block universe offers a different perspective. The present moment is not fleeting. It is there at its coordinates forever. Every moment you live is preserved. Nothing is lost. The future is not something to worry about in the same way. Whatever happens is already part of the structure. You will experience it moment by moment, discovering what happens as you go. But from another perspective, it is already settled. I do not want to pretend this perspective makes life easier or removes all difficulty. It does not. You still have to live through each moment. You still face uncertainty from the inside. You still experience hope and fear and desire. But there is something in the background that feels different, a sense of completeness, a sense that your life, whatever it holds, is a real thing, a permanent part of the structure of reality. It exists, it matters. I find this comforting in a strange way, not comforting like everything will be okay, more like comforting in the sense that existence is secure. What happens, happens, and it is part of the eternal structure. Let me slow down now. The pace can become gentler. There is no more to prove, no more to argue for, just things to wonder about, to sit with, to let drift through your mind. Think about the vast scale of the universe. Billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, spread across billions of light years, and all of it part of the same four-dimensional structure, all of it existing, in some sense, together. Your life is a tiny thread in this vast fabric, but it is there, it is woven in, it is part of the structure. From the scale of the cosmos, your life might seem insignificant, a brief flicker in an enormous void, but from another perspective, your life is as real as anything else in the structure, as permanent, as much a part of reality as the largest galaxy or the oldest star. The block universe is democratic in a strange way. Every event is equally real. Every moment exists. The birth of a star and the birth of a child, the explosion of a supernova and the blooming of a flower, all of it there, all of it part of the structure. You are part of this. You exist. Your experiences are real. Your life is woven into the fabric of spacetime. Let that thought settle. Let it rest in your mind without grasping at it. I want to talk now about something that might seem like a paradox, the question of change and permanence. In our ordinary experience, change and permanence are opposites. Things that change are not permanent. Things that are permanent do not change. But in the block universe, there is a way in which change and permanence coexist. Change is a pattern within the structure. Things are different at different times. The sun is in one position in the morning and another in the evening. A child grows into an adult. A seed becomes a tree. These are real changes. They are patterns of difference across time. They are part of what makes the structure interesting, complex, alive. But the structure itself is permanent. The block does not change. All the changes within the block are there, frozen into the fabric. The morning sun and the evening sun both exist. The child and the adult both exist. The seed and the tree both exist. Change and permanence are not opposites. Change is the pattern within the permanent structure. Both are real. This is a strange kind of reconciliation, the flux of ordinary experience and the stillness of the eternal structure, both present, both true. I do not know if this is the right way to think about things, but I find something restful in it. The world is changing, yes, life is flux, but there is also something that endures. The structure is there, the pattern is preserved. Let me bring this slowly toward rest. You have been listening for a while now. Your mind has traveled to distant galaxies, to the foundations of physics, to deep questions about the nature of time. That is a lot of territory to cover. Now let the journey slow, let the words become gentler, let your thoughts soften and drift. Think about the night sky, the stars scattered across the darkness, each point of light a distant sun, each one reaching you from a different time. In the block universe, the light that is reaching you now was always going to reach you now. It is part of the structure. The path of each photon, from star to eye, is woven into the fabric. And you, looking up at the sky, are part of the structure too. This moment of observation, this experience of wonder, is a point in spacetime. It exists. It is real. There is a kind of intimacy in this thought. The light from distant stars and your experience of seeing it, all part of the same structure, all connected in the four-dimensional fabric. You are not separate from the universe. You are part of it, woven into it, existing within it. Let that feeling expand. The sense of being part of something larger. The sense of existing within a vast structure that contains everything that has ever happened and everything that ever will happen. Your worries and concerns are real. They matter, but they are also small in the scale of the cosmos, and they are held within a structure that is complete, that endures, that simply is. There is nothing you need to do right now, nothing you need to figure out or solve. You can rest within the structure. You can let the flow of time carry you moment by moment without grasping at anything. Tomorrow will come. It is already there in a sense, waiting for you to arrive. You will experience it when you experience it. For now, this moment is enough. Let your body relax, let your breath slow, let your mind drift towards sleep. The ideas we have explored tonight are strange. They challenge assumptions you have carried your whole life, the present as relative, the future already existing, time as a pattern in a static structure. You do not have to resolve these ideas. You do not have to decide what you believe. They can just sit in your mind, open questions, invitations to wonder. Tomorrow or some other day, you might think about them again, turn them over, see them from a new angle, or you might set them aside and go about your life without thinking about them at all. Either way is fine. The ideas will be here. The questions will remain. The universe will keep its mysteries. For now, rest. Think about the simplest things, the feeling of lying down, the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath. Each breath is a moment along your world line, a small event in spacetime, real and present, and then giving way to the next. Let the moments come, let them pass, let them be what they are. In the block universe, none of them are lost. Each one exists at its coordinates, preserved in the structure, part of the eternal fabric. Your life is a thread through this fabric, a unique path, never to be repeated, woven into the cosmos. What a strange and wonderful thing to exist, to be conscious, to be here now wondering about the nature of time. Let the wonder soften into stillness. Let the stillness deepen into rest. Tomorrow is already there, somewhere in spacetime. You just have not arrived yet. But you will, moment by moment, experience by experience, you will move along your world line into tomorrow. And tomorrow will become today, and today will become yesterday. The flow continues, the pattern unfolds, and all of it is held within the structure, complete and enduring. For now, let yourself drift. Let the words fade into silence. Let the ideas dissolve into the quiet of your mind. You are part of the universe. You exist. You are here. Rest now. Let the stillness hold you. Let the night sky, with its ancient light, watch over you. Let the block universe, if it is real, contain this moment along with all the others. You do not have to understand everything. You do not have to figure it all out. Just rest. Just be. The future will wait for you. The past will be there when you remember it. For now, there is only this breath, this moment, this gradual softening into sleep. Rest. And when you wake, you will be at a new point along your world line, a new moment in space-time, a new experience of now. But that is for later. For now, just this. Stillness, quiet, rest. Good night.